Sensationally silver, because you are.
Welcome, everyone, to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age, people who are going to bring you information, inspiration, and validation. Join us. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age. My guest today is Gail Robbin. And before we go any further, I want to just say that my name is Robin Gail, and I love that Gail is named Gail Robbin. So there you go. And Gail is going to be talking to us about the gifts in being a person of age, right, Gail?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm celebrating 70 this year.
I love that idea of celebrating 70. So let me ask you, Gail, say 15 years ago, were you thinking that you'd be celebrating 70 when it came around?
No, absolutely not. I thought 70 meant that I was old. I thought 70 meant I was on the decline. I thought 70 meant I didn't like the way I looked. I thought 70 meant health problems and things that I couldn't imagine that were extremely difficult and nobody wanted. But not true at all.
Yeah, 70 meant bad news, right? It's like, oh my God.
Yes.
But that's not how it is.
No, I'm amazed. I'm amazed. And I just it just I don't say this so that I sound like I'm in self-pity because I'm not. I'm really grateful. But it just so happens that the first half of my life was very difficult. And it took me I had to learn how to navigate that and then how to get to the other side of it. And that took 70 years. That took a long time. But it's so worth it. I mean, I'm so, and I can tell you a few things, that I've learned and why. And I'm part of it is living in the time that we live because a lot of neuroscience has a lot of ideas. I don't know how to say this in an eloquent way, but a lot of neuroscientists have discovered and pioneered many practices, behaviors, and understandings that have really, really helped me let go of extreme trauma. It's really most of it, I think I don't, the truth is, a lot of this is about trauma and about learning what trauma is, how it affects me, and I can what I can do to live my life alongside it. And it's been a journey. So wasn't until 2013 that what I so PTSD has been known about for a long time, but chronic developmental trauma, or some people just call it CPTSD, didn't was not considered a diagnosis until 2013. So I'm really grateful to live in the time where that happened because it wasn't that long ago. And until all these discoveries were made, I was, until somebody learns how trauma shows up in their life, in their body, and in their feelings, their actions, their thoughts, until you can see that, you can't separate from it. And I didn't know. I didn't know I kept feeling so much shame, so much depression, so much sadness, so much lack of self-worth, so much self-loathing, and so much self-pity until I luckily found this path that, by the way, when it was first suggested to me, of course, I completely turned it down. I thought it was ridiculous. I don't have trauma. What are you talking about? I don't want to relive difficult parts of my life. I've been trying to get over them again. Don't make me go back there. Are you crazy? But I mean, I can tell you what happened that made me take this path, but it's not going to be a popular story.
Well, it probably has some relevance because one of the things I've learned is the things that are most hidden are most universal. We
Wow.
share our deep, dark secrets with so many others who have experienced that same kind of thing, but nobody's talking about it.
I
So if
love
you're willing to go into some detail, because when you said, I didn't want to do this, I didn't want to go back and revisit this. Oh, heck no. I want to get on with my life. And yet, that was the pathway to a new freedom that you have never experienced.
that's right.
And maybe somebody who's watching or listening needs to hear what that path was for you.
Well, thank you. I love what you said. I that's beautiful that the things that we keep hidden are the most universal. I think you're right. That's a mind blower to me. I've never thought of that. But when you said it, I was like, oh, when you hear the truth and your whole body just reacts.
Yeah.
That's what this feels like when you said that. So thank you. Okay, well, it's an ugly story, but here it is. Um, and I'm gonna comment on it because I've learned about it since then. But the story as it happens is um, I was walking my dog. I had two dogs. I still have two dogs, two different dogs. I was walking my dogs. I took them to a park. I let them off the leash. Granted, you weren't supposed to do that, but it's one of those parks where everyone did that, even though you weren't supposed to do it. And it was way up on the top of this hill. And there was a street, but the street was really far down the hill, and my dogs went every day and they knew not to go down the hill. So I felt safe, even though, arguably it wasn't safe to take them off leash. I felt it was because I'd done it so much and everyone else did. It's one of those things. So I did that. Well, just so happened that walking down the street while my dogs were up doing their normal play thing, was a pit bull on a very, when I, he was on a harness, a leather harness and metal and leather harness and leash. Like it was obvious that the dog needed, extra to be held very tightly and carefully. And my dogs and I had seen this dog, it actually lived right across the street from us. We'd seen it many, many times. Every time on a walk, many times on walks, we'd see this dog. And every time we saw this dog, I'd have to cross the street because the dog would growl at my dogs and my dogs would get really upset and start straining at their leashes and they wanted to get in a fight and it was a whole thing. So here comes this dog. And I had never seen it there before, but it stopped in its tracks. It knew that my dogs were there and it started growling at them. So one of my dogs, one that I still have, ran down, ran across the street, and ran up to this dog, which immediately attacked it and tried to kill it by holding onto its neck and shaking back and forth. My other dog that did not make it through this, sweet, sweet, I'm really upset. Sweet, sweet puppy, ran to save his brother, my other dog. And it happened to be a pit bull. I'm not saying anything bad about pit bulls. I'm just saying this happened to be a pit bull. The pit bull dropped my dog, took the other dog, and killed it. And right in front of me. And the guy couldn't stop a big guy, big, weightlifter kind of guy, could not stop the dog. And even after my dog was dead in his mouth, he wouldn't drop it. It was this whole thing. So that's a horrible story, but I did not feel anything at the time. Like just now, when I told the story, I wanted to cry, which is good because it means I processed the trauma, or at least I'm processing it. But at the time, I couldn't feel anything. I was completely numb. And I realized later that I screamed at the top of my lungs, but I was so dissociated, which is a word people use in trauma. I was so dissociated that I didn't even know that because suddenly everybody started coming out of their house, stopping their cars, coming down from the park. I'm like, why are all these people coming? How do they know? Anyway, and then I said, like, your dog killed my dog, and he said, "Oh, is that what happened?" And he left. He never apologized, never owned it. There was never any closure. Um, my dog Walnut was laying there dead. Somebody stopped their car and gave me a blanket. I walked my dog back up to my house, took him to the vet, the whole thing. But I had no feelings. People were so nice to me. People in the neighborhood sent me flowers. People knocked on my door to ask how I was. People at work, everybody was so nice, and I didn't feel a thing. And it really, really scared me. And I thought I was a monster. And I felt a tremendous amount of shame. And that's what finally led me to say, okay, I'm going to try this trauma therapy. Because honestly, my biggest secret, like Robin, like your listeners know that Robin said right when I started, our biggest secret is a universal truth. That's exactly, in a nutshell, that encapsulates my whole experience, because my whole life since I was 7, which is when you really, arguably, when you come into consciousness, let's just say that's the age of reason. Let's just say it is for this conversation. I'm not a therapist, so what do I know? But okay, so from that age, I've been very cut off from my feelings. And I really thought it meant, I honestly, because I wrote a memoir, and this is one big reason I wrote the memoir, is I was trying to figure out, why was I like this? But ever since the age of 9, I honestly believed that I was a monster, seriously, that I was an alien from another planet. I wasn't human. I really believed that. Even though obviously, I mean, when I say I really believe it, a big part of me believed it. Obviously, I knew I was a human being, and I didn't act crazy. I went to school and I got jobs and I got married and I had a daughter and I had a house, but inside, I really felt like a monster. And this thing with my dog Walnut, it was the last straw. I just couldn't take it. And so I went into trauma therapy. And when I went in there, the first thing I said was, the therapist, when you go to, in case people haven't been to therapy, usually the first thing you're asked is, why are you here? What's the issue? And I said, I just want to be able to feel. And I didn't think I could. But the whole journey that I've had in this type of trauma therapy, which if I can say, the one that I'm in there's many. And I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying the one I'm in that's working for me is called IFS, Internal Family Systems. Other people who may listen to this, who know something about trauma or know that they have complex developmental trauma, have probably heard of it. It's relatively new, but not for people in trauma. People in trauma know about it. I actually started with another thing called EMDR, which helps you desensitize memories that you have. Many people have done that too. That was the first thing that helped me. And then this was the second thing. And this is, I've been able to stick with this for about 8 years. And it's completely changed my life. It's allowed me to, now I know that I do have feelings. I was pushing them aside and I was separated from them to protect myself. So again, the fact that I could tear up about my dog means the world to me. And because of that, and I think a lot of people will understand this, but if not, I'll explain it. Because of that, I'm also able to experience joy and happiness, which I wasn't able to do, because I have a feeling that, Robin, I have a feeling I can probably put it very well if you want to, that when you can't feel one thing without the other. You can't only feel the good feelings. It doesn't work that way.
Right. If you put the lid on, you're putting the lid on everything, the joy as well as the despair, on and on, all the emotions.
Exactly. Right. And that's what I did. And just today I was listening to a book. Many people, again, it's nothing new about this book. It's just new to me. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. Maybe you've heard of it. This is a popular book in trauma circles. And just so let me just say, many people with addictions and autoimmune issues and other kinds of physical and mental issues. There is a big relationship to trauma and those things. So, not everything. I mean, there are some biological, straight, but many behavioral issues and things like anxiety, depression, and then some arguably OCD. There are a lot of things that have been healed for me through this trauma work. One of which is, pretty severe depression. Not that I don't have depression, but it looks and feels completely differently. It's manageable. It's manageable. And because now I can feel happy, I'm celebrating tea, I guess. It feels so good because I didn't really have it before. I didn't know what I was missing. I didn't know.
So, Gail, if somebody is listening or watching and they're thinking, well, okay, but I've lived with this long, and what's the point? There isn't that much time left to my life. Maybe I have 10, 20 years, maybe I have 5 minutes, but why should I do this now? If I were 30, I could see it, but it sounds like a lot of stress, a lot of trouble, a lot of pain to go through to maybe not have results, maybe not have it make a big difference, just walk through a lot of trouble for maybe nothing. And I bet you can make a very good case for doing this at this age as well as any other age. Yeah.
No, I wish I could make a good case, but I don't know that I'm going to make a good case because here's what I'm going to say. If somebody doesn't want to do it, they probably shouldn't, because you're right. You're right. It's quite a journey. It's not an easy journey. And it's kind of like, say when you're growing up, somebody who needs help, but they just don't want help. And you're thinking, I wish they'd go to a therapist. And let's even say this is someone you're related to, a daughter, a son, and you feel as a parent that you can say, I'm going to make them go to therapy. I'm going to say my husband, I'm going to divorce them if they don't go to therapy. They're not going to get anything out of therapy if they don't want to be there. So it's kind of like lead a horse to water, can't make him drink. Um, if somebody is okay without doing this and does not resonate with what I'm saying, and I'm going to say this, if someone's listening who feels the way they do about not have the way I did about thinking that I didn't have feelings and thinking that I was inhuman and all the shame that caused me, if anyone can relate to that, I think they're going to want to do this, because that is so bad that even if you only had, well, not if you had 5 minutes, but if you had 5 years, it'd be worth it. Because, and I know people older than me on this path. I have a friend who's 78 who's on this path and has been on the path for 2 years and has completely changed her life. And she's so grateful. So the thing is, living this other way, as I was talking about this book, I was just listening today. Again, just till today, even though I've been doing this for 8 years, I know that I'm not the only person that thought I didn't have feelings. And I know that I had immense shame. And I know how shame feels. And I know that shame is toxic. And I know that I can't allow shame. If I ever think that there's shame for me, I need to stop and do what all the things I've learned to do to get out of that. Or I'll relive the trauma again. What I didn't know until today, just today, before 3 hours ago, before this meeting you today here in the book, everybody who has that feels that shame and feels like a monster. So if that's true, and I kind of think it may be because this man is the author is so, and again, let me just say the name of the book in case, is The Body Keeps the Score. And the author, a Bessel funny name, is so renowned and respected. I don't think he's just saying it. I think it's true. So anyone who's feeling that way, please don't feel hopeless. And please know that trauma therapy is there. And as scary as it is to think about reliving the traumatic moments, it works.
And I'm assuming that when you decide that you're going to take the steps going on this path, you're not doing it alone. You have somebody there to guide you, to support you, and to help you understand what's happening as it unfolds. It sounds to me, Gail, like, and I love the way you're not saying, oh, everybody should do this. I love that because I've been the therapist in that chair on the other side when somebody doesn't want to be there. You know, I worked in the field of addiction and lots of people would send somebody to see me. And I learned when they were on the phone making the appointment for the husband, I'd say, no, no, I want you to come in. And then we talk about that person. And usually that was very fruitful. The husband wasn't going to come in anyway, or if he did, it wasn't going to work. You can't do therapy with someone who doesn't want to change. So that desire to change has to be
Absolutely.
very
That's very
big,
true.
very big.
And I'm really glad you brought that up, Robin, about it isn't, I want to say that it isn't scary because the therapist, first of all, by the very nature of trauma itself, your body has to allow the healing in. So it has to, parts of you, parts of me that have been traumatized have to let go and feel trusting enough to be healed. Because the reason that they're holding on is they feel that we're in danger and we can't let go or something bad's going to happen. So it's only with somebody very safe, probably the type of therapist you are, or the type of therapist I have. Um, and the therapist won't rush it and can't, because even if they did rush it, then you would just emotionally seize up anyway. It wouldn't work. You can't. But the therapist knows this. Just so anyone listening, if they're interested in internal family systems, the training for it is very long and arduous. The people who do it and are licensed in it or certificated in it have a lot of training. And so you're not going to get somebody like, you're not going to get an intern. Not that anything's wrong with an intern, but it's not going to be one of those things like it could happen, for example, with addiction, that you could get someone rather inexperienced as your therapist. If you didn't have the money to pay, that could happen. Someone who's getting their hours. That's not going to happen with this. That's not what this is. So, right, she walked me through, there were so many hours of going over what happened and explaining the memory so that by the time I went into it, I already knew it was safe. And then the other thing they do at the end of the session is they bring you down. You don't just walk out. They take you through a whole, de-escalation. I don't know what to call it.
Kind of like when the astronauts come
Yeah,
back.
exactly. You
Yeah.
ground yourself. You ground yourself. You ground yourself. And you got to really take it easy too. There's exhaustion that comes afterwards. Sometimes I had to, when I first started, not now, but when I first started, I had to take the day off work the next day many times. I mean, and I now, and I've read about it now because now I understand more about it and I can read about it. And that's very, very common to be exhausted. Really, for me, I think what the whole thing really is a journey of self-love, because people throw the word self-love around like, a Hallmark card. Learn to love yourself. Can't love anybody till you love yourself. Okay, great. But learning to love myself has been, a long road. I didn't know it was possible. I didn't know what it meant. If it's not, and this is just my opinion, for me anyway, if it's not modeled for you, and many of our parents, because they've lived through such horrible trauma, wars, just, the last 100 years of, like, if you have grandparents who were in the Holocaust, for example, or, like that, then there's the generational issue part of it. We don't know how to love ourselves. So I'm learning that that's quite a lesson, and it needs to be taught, in my opinion, unless you're lucky enough to have parents who can model it for you and, which it can happen and is great. I have friends that are like that. Fabulous. That's not my story.
Yeah, that isn't everybody's story,
No.
obviously.
Yeah.
And Gail, it maybe this is oversimplifying, but it sounds like you're inviting people to consider giving themselves this gift if they know that in some way they've been frozen all their life, that some part of them has just not been operating the way they can see it operating in other people, the spontaneity, the capacity for joy, the playfulness, whatever, that's missing, that they might want to consider being willing to do this work and trusting that the process will unfold at a rate they can handle, but that it really does come down to giving yourself that gift to come alive to a degree that you haven't been alive before, no matter how many years you've been here. Because
100%.
yeah, because
100%. It's so well stated. Oh my God.
well,
Wow.
yeah, because just being around doesn't mean we get better at being whatever we are or whoever we are. It can just be time served, which is not a happy
That's
concept
what it
when you
felt
think.
like.
Uh-huh.
Let me
Yeah,
tell you, that's what it felt like.
yeah. I believe that. I believe that.
And Frozen is a really good word. In fact, the movie Frozen, which I'm watching with my granddaughter all the time now, it's just, and that's the other thing. What a gift to be able to feel love and joy like that people feel for grandchildren, which, everybody says the same thing, greatest thing that ever happened. Yes, it is. I promise you. But thank God that I can feel it, you know? I didn't know. I was kind of scared when she was born. What if I'm frozen? I was afraid of that, actually. That was a big thing. But again, because of this work, I'm not. But it's funny because it's just funny you mentioned Frozen because in that movie's all about trauma. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's all about trauma. And it's actually pretty scary that what they're talking about. It's pretty deep and awful. But, it's a big thing that, I think we as humans to evolve emotionally, I think we need to look at it, to one extent or another. Some people not so much, you know, because even if you've got, again, with this book today, they had an example of someone who had seen one of the planes crash into the tower on 9/11, a little boy who was 9 at the time. But because of the way the family dealt with it, even though that was a huge trauma, and and he was so young, he was able to heal it. Even if we do have first of all, everybody has trauma. It just really depends, again, who your family is. And it can be healed. So, it depends. Like I said, everyone I know, even the healthiest emotional people I know, obviously have had traumatic moments, but it doesn't mean it's going to affect you the way it affected me, for example, which was a combination of how I was. So I had a severely mentally ill mother, and she really couldn't be a mother except for biologically. She tried, she really did. And, my heart goes out to her. I have so much compassion for her because, like you said, time served. I really think that's how life seemed to her. And it's horrible. And they knew so little then about she has had schizophrenia and bipolar. So it's called schizophrenic affect, I think now. Um, they didn't know anything. And the drugs that they gave her just made her basically lobotomized. So they don't do that anymore. They don't give those drugs anymore. And they know a lot more now. But at that time, so a lot of it has to do with, the time, the circumstance, the resources the resourcefulness that we're born with. Who are we? I could have a twin sister who is completely different than me, there's that too. There's a lot to consider. It's complicated, but I'm really grateful for all the studies and all the people that are interested in this right now.
So, Gail, before we end today, tell us a little bit about how you are celebrating being 70.
Oh, okay.
Let's hear the party part of
Okay. Well,
it.
so I decided to have a bunch of little celebrations. I thought about the party, but I don't want that. I want a bunch of little celebrations with people who mean things to me. So I already started. I went about 6 times this year over the course of the year. My birthday's not till August, but about six, I already did my first one, actually my first two. Um, I'm doing things. So the first thing I did with my two best friend, I'm lucky to have really good girlfriends. I'm blessed in that way. I'm just really lucky. So I have two really good, like best friends, teachers, like me, I'm a teacher. And we all went to, I don't know if anyone's heard of this, but Landers, which is down near Joshua Tree. There's an incredible sound bath experience down there. And then we went to the Mineral Hot Springs and Desert Hot Springs. So we did that. We had that weekend. My friend and I just last week, it was spring break. We went to Monterey, we went to the aquarium, and I just felt like a little kid. I had so much joy. I had a smile on my face, like I was in, and I know that as a kid, I didn't really necessarily feel that very often. But it was like just being a child full of wonder and joy and watching all these other kids there. It was so beautiful. So I just did that. The next thing that I'm doing is taking my granddaughter, who will be 3.5 at that time, to a place you know well, Solvang, and they're doing a live show of Frozen, and that's her favorite movie, and we'll spend the night, and she'll have the little village and all the fun. And then what I'm doing on my actual birthday is going to another place, going to Catalina and not scuba, snorkeling in the marine park there, which I guess is a really great, world-class place. And I'm really excited about that. And then I am going to, I'm renting a Airbnb in Cambria with a friend at the end of the summer. And then the last thing I'm doing is going to the Four Corners area with a really close friend, and Monument Valley, which I've always wanted to see and I've never been to. Actually, I tried to go once, but I went in the winter and there was a blizzard and I couldn't see any of the formations. So I'm doing that. And those are all my things. That's how
So
I'm celebrating 70.
I love it. Are you a Leo since your birthday's in August? Oh yeah. See, we Leos, folks, if you're not one, we know how to stretch that birthday. And if none of the rest of what Gail is saying to you applies, you think, no, I haven't had that trauma. I live a very rich life. I always have. I have all my feelings right there, ups, downs, sideways, whatever.
Great.
If nothing else, take from Gail's message that you can celebrate your birthday for a long time. Make it one heck of a big celebration.
Yeah, right.
Because by the time we're this old, that alone deserves celebrating. But I do, Gail, I hear you saying it's never too late to give yourself this gift, to reclaim parts of your humanity that you've had to leave behind just to be able to be in the world. And you can get them back if you choose, if you decide that you're brave enough to hold somebody's hand and let them guide you through that. So that's a powerful, powerful message to all of you who have been with us through this talk with Gail. I'm not a therapist anymore. I haven't been for a long, long time, but I think I'm always a therapist at heart. There's something in me that just wants to help and wants people to maximize themselves and that self-love. It is a phrase that's overused and probably doesn't have as much real meaning as it needs to have. But any of us who have had to learn that, and I'm one of those people who have had to learn how to really fall in love with yourself. I didn't learn that until way into the second half of my life. However long I live, it's going to be the second half. And what a gift that is. What an incredible gift that is, to cherish who you are, to not wish you were somebody else with their life, but to just love this life and this person and celebrate ourselves. So last thing I want you to do, Gail, if you will, to all our listeners and our viewers, what do you want to say in closing to these people who have been with you?
I want to thank you for inviting me to be here, and your lovely daughter, who's a very good friend of mine. And I want to, even though I don't know you very well, to me, you're a guiding light. And so is your daughter. I think she knows that she is. Maybe you don't know that you are, but I'm telling you. So I just want to say to everybody, there's a lot of guiding lights out there. And, look for them and embrace them. And, it's okay to trust, and things can be better than they were. And I'm just really happy to be here. I'm just happy. I feel like I've climbed Mount Everest, I feel like yay. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Gail. And I think climbing Mount Everest, as arduous as that is a metaphor for many of us regarding what life's been. Climbing that mountain and struggling, and hopefully getting to the point where you can see the view and you can feel
Right.
the rewards of that struggle.
Right.
So this is something to consider if you've been living.
Just another way to get there if
Yeah.
you've tried other ways that haven't worked and
Yeah.
related to what I said.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gail. And thanks to all of you for being with us today. We will see you next time. Great news, everybody. Our premier hair care product line, Sensationally Silver, is now available on Amazon. You can order it so easily, you can get it so quickly, and you can be so sensationally silver.
Sensationally silver.